based services program manager. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for officially joining us for our open house session. We're really excited to be with you all today. Next slide, please. All right, our agenda for today, we're going to start off with some welcome and introductions, and then we are going to give an overview of Best Start for Kids and our specific strategies. We'll talk a little bit about the application priorities and what type of partners we're looking for in our RFPs, and talk about the application process and what to expect, and then talk about next steps and answer any questions you may have. Alrighty. Well, for those of you who may not be familiar, this is Best Start for Kids. It's our second levy. This levy started in 2022 and it's running to 2027. It's a voters approved initiative. In 2.0, which is what we refer to it as our second levy, we've added a childcare component. So getting affordable access to childcare services to families, that is about 200 million of our initiative. We also added a capitals project, so improving the facilities that are being held in, and that's up to 50 million. And we have homeless prevention aspect of our work. 50% of any of those remaining funds go into the Invest Early Prenatal to 5 body of work, which is where we all sit in. We work on really setting up those very strong foundations for babies really early. We also then we try to make sure we're sustaining all of those efforts that we put in place intentionally and support little ones between the age of 5 to 24. We know the places that communities live in matter. So we have an initiative that covers about 88%, sorry, not 80, 8% of our remaining levy. And then we want to make sure we're evaluating our impact. How are we doing? Is our strategies working? So 5% of the remaining levy goes in there. And we also not only want to invest in communities, but the organizations we work in and ensuring that they have the infrastructure that they need to do the great work that they're doing. So we have TA and capacity building supports, which is about 10 million investment area. So we sit in Invest Early. So in that very early stages, while babies are in the tummy all the way up to the age of 5, we have 3 strategies that we're covering today. The body of work that I get the honor of working with is community-based parenting supports. One of the things that's really component in this body of work is we serve caregivers. So caregivers is a wide range of terms. It's all of the amazing people that are in the village taking care of babies. That's the aunties, the uncles, the nannies, the neighbors, the primary caregivers. So just like anybody in that body of work is what this body of work touches. And the cool and really intentional aspect of this body of work is peer-based. So all of the providers in community-based parenting support share the lived experience, culture, and languages that they serve. And it covers a breadth of services, starting off with ensuring families have access to basic need resource supplies. And we have 3 resource workers that we're currently working with. There will not be an RFP open for that body of work. It's a very niche, and we have these partners that we're going to extend contracts with. The other buckets is where an RFP will be open for. So that's Kaleidoscope Play and Learn. That is a fun and interactive way caregivers can access or get help getting their kiddos ready for kindergarten. We have caregivers, parent information and supports, which covers like classes and workshops and support groups for caregivers. And the largest bucket in the strategy is prenatal and lactation support. So ensuring that caregivers and babies have the supports they need really early with education on how to prepare for labor, culturally relevant education, as well as how to chest feed or reach any feeding goals that families have. And then we work with birth workers as well to ensure that they have the tools and resources that they need. So this is a high level of CBPS, and the component about CBPS is where does it take place. So we reach families in places that they're already gathering. So that's community centers, healthcare clinics, libraries. All of the services are held in the community environment.
And home-based services in the Best Starts context refers to an ongoing relationship-based support to families who are prenatal to 5 in the spaces that families live or that they feel safe, that they identify as home. And Best Starts understands home-based services as a continuum of services ranging from nationally implemented models, and that's the term we use to describe those models that were designed in a Western academic definitions of evidence or evidence-based, evidence-informed research space. Some common models that fit within that nationally implemented model bucket might be parents as teachers, early Head Start, Parent Child Plus. And we also, on the other end of this continuum, we see community design models. These are the models that were designed by and for a specific King County community based on community-defined evidence. And we have a number of programs across King County that are implementing their own unique models. So home-based services programs offer supports to prenatal to 5 families. Part of home-based service strategy is to create a system where home-based services and providers, families, and programs can thrive. So we do this by partnering with capacity building supports, which supports organizational development, innovation supports team, which helps to support and address gaps that programs have found to kind of pivot their programs and better meet family needs, meet families where they're at. And for those nationally implemented model programs, we work with TA providers who support them on their model guidance. So this RFP is open to a range of nationally implemented model and community design model programs. The only models we're explicitly excluding from the next upcoming funding opportunity are Parent Child Plus and Nurse Family Partnership, because those programs are currently already being supported by another BSK source of funding.
All right, and I'm going to tell you
Can you
about
repeat that, please? The last, who is not the last 2 sentences?
Sure. So for home-based services, the next funding opportunity is not eligible for Parent-Child Plus programs or Nurse Family Partnership programs, because those 2 specific nationally implemented models of programming already have dedicated funding sources from a different Best Start source. So those programs, different Best Starts, home visiting, home-based services funding source, all the other nationally implemented models ranging to all the other locally community design models, this funding source here.
Thanks, Chloe. And now I'm going to tell you about the third strategy in this combo RFP, and that is universal developmental screening, which I'm going forward, you'll hear it be referred to as universal developmental screening and promotions. So all applicants for the UDSP programs must have these 4 elements involved. So number 1, increase interest in and access to developmental screening and referrals for young children. They must reduce stigma and address misconceptions about developmental delays, disabilities, and mental health concerns. They must offer culturally and linguistically matched developmental education, monitoring, and/or screenings. And they must support referrals with warm connections when additional developmental services are needed. Plus, applicants can choose one special focus for their UDSP program. The special focuses, just at a very high level, are parent champions, and that is really a family engagement strategy where specific parents are selected and compensated to do developmental promotion activities with their friends and peers. B, learning activities. That is where funded partners design and put on a variety of learning opportunities or workshops or conversation circles that seek to engage and discuss and educate on developmental topics. And the third special focus, C, is supports for children 3 to 5-year-olds. And that's included because to address a service gap in the community. And so these programs would be specifically UDSP programs for children 3, 4, and 5 and their families. And these programs provide direct services, but also maybe some navigation support, some partnership with local child find efforts and school districts. So who should be considering to apply for this combo RFP? We're here to help. We want you to know that the partners that would be ideal for this.
Wait, sorry, Juliet, you got on mute.
Interesting. Sorry, I don't know when I got on mute. So the partners that would be best for this combo RFP can be described by these attributes. They're culturally responsive with their service community. They provide relationship-based services. Everything they do with children and families is strength-based and inclusive. They center the community in their programming and decisions, and they're ready to implement these programs soon after being funded. The programs that we think would be ideal for this combo RFP have these elements across. So the program should promote protective factors. They should build community. They must be culturally and linguistically informed, and sharing resources is very important. So if we look at these 3 overarching priorities, these are really important for any of the strategies or work in this combo RFP. So our priorities are reflective, connected, and ready. And we will break down what that means. For reflective, our goal is to partner with organizations that are reflective of the communities they serve. So that means that this RFP seeks organizations and programs that share lived experience and/or the culture of the community served. This needs to include direct service staff, but also organizational leadership and board oversight. And then for connected, our goal is to partner with organizations that are connected to the communities they serve. So this RFP seeks organizations and programs that are already trusted by the community they work with. We seek partners that have established relationships with and are responsive to the community they serve. And finally, organizational readiness. Our goal is to partner with organizations that are ready to implement. This RFP seeks organizations with established fiscal, administrative, and data processes. The contracts will only be 18 to 24 months, and so ideal applicants are ready to implement and get the programming going. Now I will turn it over to Chloe, who will tell you a bit about the application process.
So our application process will have a round 1, which will be some short answer questions as along with multiple choice questions. It's really an eligibility screening on readiness and asking for a brief overview of the proposed program and the population served. The intent behind this is to make sure that everyone who is invited to round 2, which is the longer, more qualitative narrative process of this application, really fits at least the minimum eligibility criteria before investing all that time in writing out this full application. Our round 2, you can, so after round 1, we'll be inviting folks who meet the minimum eligibility criteria to round 2. Round 2, you can expect a longer answer response, really a deeper, more focused type of question. Those questions will focus on those priority areas that Juliet defined, being reflective, connected, and ready. And we will likely have interviews for those applications where clarification is needed. And just a note based on the question that we assume coming up is that review panelists will be reviewing applications alongside similar applications. They will not be reviewing completely different scopes of work on the same review panel batch, if that makes sense. Let's go to the next one. Right, just to give you a little bit of sense of the timeline, because I know that can be a little bit disconcerting. We have to fit in the different timelines of contracts and the levy and where everyone's at. So this year, 2025, we hope that by early April, we can open a round one. We're really hoping to provide as much time for folks who are applying to not only apply, but also have time to digest and process their award or decline to be sure that they can do the necessary planning to be able and ready to implement when the contracts start. So round one, we hope to open in early April and have 2 weeks for that round one, the basic short answer and multiple choice section to be available. In the middle or toward the end of April would be the period of being invited to round two applications where you see those deeper narrative responses, focusing on reflective, connected, and ready. The RFP, that full second round narrative RFP, will be at least 6 weeks open. We anticipate late April through early June. Then from middle June to early middle July, we expect to have panel review and recommendations meetings to identify those recommended awardees. If there are interviews necessary to clarify any applications we received, we anticipate that being around mid-July, with award notifications going out to applicants between August and September, early fall. Now, if we cycle over to 2026, the community-based parenting supports contracts that were introduced by Hannah Mohammed, those contracts are scheduled to begin January 1st, 2026. Home-based services, so the scope I explained, as well as the universal developmental screening and promotion strategy that Juliet explained, those contracts will aim to begin July 1st in 2026. And we just wanted to kind of call the bigger context into your attention that the Best Starts, this second cycle, the Best Starts levy does draw to a close in 27, which is why all contracts will end December 31st, 2027. And we'll see what happens with the potential of the next levy before moving forward. So to the next slide, please. So some next steps. We really recommend that you please subscribe to the Best Starts blog if you want to be notified with the most up-to-date information about when RFPs are released. The other recommendation we have is that when we release an RFP, we partner with our capacity builders and technical assistance team so that you can reach out and get connected with technical assistance support if it would feel helpful to have second external eyes going through this application with you. Right. And thank you for being here today. And we wanted to open the floor just to see if there are any questions, any answers we can provide. And I just also want to share that this is still a work in progress. We're still working through all the pieces. So we'll do our best to get you answers, and we appreciate knowing what's on your mind. And so I just want to, okay, I see a question in the chat if we have to apply for all three of them or they could be separate. They are 3 separate scopes of work, and you may apply to 1, 2, or all 3. And we will find a process within this application where it is clear which sources of funding most connect to your work. And you could be eligible for all 3 or 1, depending on what you're applying for.
I have a question, Chloe.
Yeah.
Hi. Is the is the ceiling similar to BSK 2.0?
We do not have any more funding than we have had in the first part of the levy. We don't ask or subscribe like specific caps, and we do hope that people submit budgets showing the true cost, because that is really helpful. But there is no extra money in our bucket, if
Wow.
that gives some context.
But we wouldn't be docked for like asking for like too much.
No, it's
Okay.
always helpful. We don't score budgets in the applications because we really want to see what it costs to run a program. We wish we could meet all the need, and we know we can't. But it's always helpful to have that in mind in context of the conversation, especially when you get into contracting and figuring out what is viable and how do we prioritize.
Thanks,
I-
Chloe.
Yeah. I see a question in the chat. Can you elaborate how the new round of funding interacts with the current round? At least for UDS, there might be overlapping months. I don't believe there are overlapping months, but I'm going to pass that to Juliet.
Sure. So the current UDSP programs end June 30th, 2026. And so that is why, even though we are doing the application shortly, the new contracts will start July 1st. So that is intended to be a seamless pass through for programs that are currently funded and then get new funding as well.
There is a second part of the question, which is, can reoccurrent recipients apply for the next round for the same program and for a different scope of work? And the answer, I believe, across the board is yes and yes. If you are already funded, you are welcome to reapply for the same funding.
I am very worried.
If you are not funded, you are welcome to apply. If you are funded and it's a different scope of work, you're open to apply. It is how you see yourself connected to this RFP.
Joy, could you share a little bit more about the budgeting and the funding available?
I'd say the funding will probably is the same across of what we distributed in 2.0 across the board. I don't know, Chloe, what your total funds is for CBPS is like 3.4 million in the buckets. So no extra funds available. So awards will most likely be around the same amount.
They will likely be about the same amount. We will also, like, home base will be asking for what your budget is so that we can take that into consideration depending on the number of applications and what the distribution could look like. UDS, do you have a UDSP?
Close to the same. There are some other factors that are in play, but no big differences. So I would say similar to the amounts and scaled for the amount of time.
Will the questions be available ahead of the application opening? The question should be available with the release of the RFP. I do not think they will be available before that. Can you apply for different projects under? Yes, you can. You can apply for different projects within the same strategy. So like you could apply for 2 home-based projects. You could also apply for a home-based and a CPS and a UDSP. Whatever best fits your work. And yes, we can share out the slide. I also believe that this is recorded, so it can go onto the blog for anyone who missed this information. What other questions are coming up?
Is the UDS and the CBPS, is it too different or is it combined this time? Do we
applied separately or combined? Like how does that look when you start applying, like when you answer the questions? Like how do you answer your questions with regards to that, whether you should apply with combined or two separate ones?
Yes, we are still in the planning phases, right? And so we're at this moment, we're planning on having separate contracts. I'm sorry, separate RFPs. And then so you would apply for UDS separately and CBPS separately and home-based services separately. And we're working on aligning questions as much as possible so we can streamline what we're asking. And so that way, at least the organization components, you can probably copy and paste it between the different RFPs and then just focus on the specifics around the programs.
Thank you.
We get a couple more questions come through the chat. And just to clarify, for home-based services, can homeless shelters be considered home? Yes, we have a really broad definition of home as it's defined by the family, wherever they really feel safe. Will there be separate questions both for the pre-op and the narrative for each scope of work? We are doing our best to have the same questions or at least aligned questions across the different strategies. One of the things that we're still working on is the easiest, like most user-friendly way to answer without putting an extra burden on you to repeat yourself or answer so many different questions in so many different ways. And so I think that's one of the pieces we're still working out. But we're going to be doing, we have the same priority areas. We have the same partner priorities and general program priorities. It's really how it applies in the implementation of the work that differs. And we're working through how we can make the most user-friendly experience to answer, for you to be able to answer completely, showcasing your organization and your program without being redundant or it being like overly tedious. So stay tuned. We're doing our best. And if anyone has brilliant ideas, that'd be amazing.
I do want to clarify that there will be an opportunity in the full application, the round 2, for you to describe your vision for your CBPS program and separately your vision for your UDS program. But all of the sort of foundational questions about your organization, about your service population, the things that are true across, you won't have to do more than once as our plan works out.
And I'll just throw a reminder out there that there will be info sessions, and that at that point we would have everything already identified, and we'll have more concrete answers for you. So stay tuned for that, and keep an eye on our blog so you know exactly when that RFP comes out and when those info session dates will take place.
I see a question about if you're already getting emails about Best Starts in general, will the RFPs be automatically sent or will we need to sign up to receive them? I'm not sure where you're getting your emails from, but if it's from the blog, it should pop up. Okay, cool.
Any other questions, thoughts, concerns? Shelters can be considered community space. Yeah, it's very broad of like where's community gathering, where's our safe spaces.
As there's a lull in questions, I wonder if we ask you what could help you feel more prepared or set up for when this RFP is released.
Internally, we've been calling it 2.5 because we had our 2.0 funding pool, and this is like a 2.5 in the midst of a 3.0. Okay. Well, as always, if there's nothing else, thank you so much for all that you do and expressing interest in applying for RFP. Vanessa, is that a goodbye or did you have a question? Just make sure okay. So nice to see you. Thank you, everyone. Much appreciation. Keep an eye out for more details. There'll be our info session will answer a lot more questions in depth. Thank you.
So there
Bye, thank
isn't
you.
any more
Mhm.
session from 3 to 4, right? Because this was from 1 to 4 session. So I'm just wanting to know if I'm not missing any another meeting.
We're the last one on the list, right? If I'm remembering correctly.
Does Help
There's
Me
a
Grow
4
start at
o'clock.
4?
Yeah,
Mhm.
so nothing from 3 to 4. I'm not sure about that, but I'll double
Okay.
check, Sujata.
Yeah, I'll email you. We'll make sure we'll double check.